You know, I've said it before, and I don't think I get enough backing on it, but when you want to talk about MMA's current A-team,
hey, dude,
this right
either
here,
way, I'm on the same team.
this right here is the A-team.
You guys want to go on set?
Yeah, let's go. Let's do it.
I had more advantage. Look, we thought, let's step up our pregame preview. Let's get a little harder. You know what I'm saying? In terms of alcohol, in terms of intention, in terms of attitude.
I'm just glad it's not lying.
Who's the main?
Islam Volk.
No. Fuck. Motherfuckers, I know who we're talking about. Hey, what are we doing on today's video shoot? I'm saying, which of these two? It is a huge fight in a faraway land. But even though it's far away, it is very much worth your attention when the pound-for-pound best fighter in the sport jumps up a weight class to see if he can become a double champ. Alexander Volkanovski, your reigning featherweight champion, on February 12th, jumps up to lightweight to take on newly crowned UFC lightweight champion Islam Makhachev at the RAC Arena in Perth, Australia. Live, by the way, on pay-per-view. And to get you ready for it is three dads wearing black and blue jeans. That's Brian
Blue
Campbell.
on black, tears on a river.
There he goes.
Who's going to show?
That's Brian Campbell. That's the Iceman himself, the man in the hat, Chuck Mindenhall. I'm Luke Thomas. Welcome to the Morning Combat UFC 284 pre-game preview.
It
Gents, how
goes
are we?
without saying.
What's up,
Luke,
brother?
The ground rules for this, right? It kind of
Oh,
goes
fuck
without saying,
off.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? We're gonna find out if Perth has girth, right? Yeah.
So that time was under a minute before we got to the genitalia.
Also,
That's not bad.
look, no punches pulled. This ain't like the Spotify hour on Ringer, where it's like
Jesus.
we're gonna pull our punches here and be safe. In this couch, real talk, brother. All right.
All right.
All right.
All right.
How's life?
It's good,
Man
man.
in the hat.
It's good.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be back here. I don't know why we didn't do one for UFC 283, but hey,
Well,
who's
it's because
counting?
that main event is
Who's counting?
you know, it's whatever.
It's my boy, Glover. What are you talking about?
But I guess by the time this is aired, we already know what happened at 283.
Right,
but we're
exactly.
recording
That was a good fight.
Look, did you say this 284 card is nubs outside of the top two fights?
Top three. Top three fights are great. After that, it's,
They are great.
Mid, and then it drops.
yeah. It's
There's two and a half great
plummets.
fights on this card. 2.5. Okay.
Well, 283 was funny, right? Because the main event, again, at the time of this recording, the main event was not, well, it wasn't barn burner awesome. It was fine. But the rest of the card on paper seemed to be pretty great. This one is the exact opposite. This one has the most insanely awesome main
Yeah.
event, a fantastic co-main event, a decent feature fight, a good one.
Yes.
And then other fights.
Can you tell me who the opening pay-per-view fight is? I don't, off the top of my head. I know we're doing a preview here, but I can't even.
Is it Jimmy Crute?
Could be
Let me
the Jimmy
double check.
Crute. Could be the Jimmy Crute. I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you did put me on the spot. And
Sorry
that's
about
embarrassing,
that.
but
Jimmy
it's all
Crute.
right. No,
Jimmy
I don't
Crute has never seen the scorecards, by the way. That's a barn burner.
Indeed, that's true. But if I'm looking up 284, your opening main card bout, I believe I was right. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, excuse me. Jimmy Crute would be on the prelims as it's listed here. It would actually be Justin Tafa at heavyweight taking on Parker Porter.
Okay.
But yes, not that great. Now, before we get any further into this card, thumbs up on the video if you're watching on YouTube. Hit subscribe, all that good stuff. Where can everyone find your work? We'll plug it at the end as well. We always plug it at the end.
Yes.
And then I feel bad. So up front, where do folks get your stuff?
You can catch me at The Myth, MITH. That's where I have some words. And then you can catch me at The Ringer. I do some writing there. And the MMA Ringer show, I believe it's called.
And then you have an OnlyFans account, as I understand.
OnlyFans. And then OnlyFans.
That famous Brit, Peter
Yes.
Carroll.
Oh,
right?
boy, here we go.
Yeah,
It's
that's not
infectious
for this-
now.
He's that UK plus guy.
Yeah,
right?
UK.
Oh, my Lord.
By the way, there's a nice piece of words I like to live by. Candy is dandy, but liquor is quicker. Are we gonna do this show like men would, or did, or?
I like that you don't need a segue.
I
You
don't
just
really
create-
drink, but if you want to drink, we can drink.
All right. We got anything good over there? Where's
we
the liquor
got?
cabinet? What do we
Okay,
got?
stop doing a bit. Just get the liquor bottle.
This guy's so ornery.
Can you
right
spot?
here.
Wait, can we even see the Easter egg? Where is it planted? Okay.
We do over Brian's right shoulder, if you look closely, we have the Cannibal Corpse liquor. And then we have this one. Oh, well, okay. I mean, they're just having a freak
This
show.
is great.
Will you just grab the motherfucking
I don't know
liquor?
where it is. I don't know where the damn thing is.
It's right behind you. I think we have Brendan Schaub's liquor. Tiger
wow.
Thick. I've
Yeah.
not had this. Anyone here had this?
I have not
I have
had
not
this.
had this.
I have
But-
to assume some would say this is the thickie.
I'm
you
I'm
guys-
only going to taste it. I'm not going to drink because I just don't want to drink
This is
anymore.
blended whiskey, 48% alcohol by volume.
Yeah, that's...
And it was a
this is
hefty
such a
price
special
tag, especially
treat,
to
yeah.
get it shipped here. But we support our ex-colleague Luke. So here we go.
all right, you going to try some? I'm told it's pretty good. I've not had it.
How much does it go for, Luke?
$90. I had retails for $90. It
All
is.
right.
It is a little on the price.
We could have had
Yeah.
this open before we started.
Secondary
the show.
market's probably a little more.
The secondary market, yes. There is. Did you, like a child, just hand this off to him, be like, "Daddy, open this for me"?
Oh,
Wow, you
man.
just Tukey'd me right there.
I just took the shit out of you.
Yeah.
All right, BC. 284, as we're opening this up, let's talk about it. Not the card in general, but let's just start where everything starts, where everything matters. That main event. Volkanovski versus Makhachev.
Can I ask you a question to
Sure,
start?
go
'Cause I know
ahead.
you want to tee me up, but the people really want to hear from Chuck and then you.
Yeah, Chuck
and then,
first.
and then me at the end. So why don't we start
Well,
with
don't
you
hand me
while
the
Chuck's
bottle,
busy? This fight is awesome. What Volkanovski's trying to do is awesome. Makhachev and the victory he just had over Charles Oliveira and where he's at is, damn, is this a fight for the #1 pound-for-pound spot in the world?
Yes. Or a very good case can be made for it, yes.
That's all I needed.
You have the shot glasses down here.
Oh, here we go. Here, you hold this.
Yeah, hold on. Let's pause that conversation. God, Jesus.
Green one for you?
Yeah, just take a little bit. I just want to taste, please. Just taste me up.
Cork, we're having it.
Okay, you can leave it and you put it to the
We
side.
can just start over from the beginning.
No, it's quite all right. just a taste, fuckface.
All right.
That's plenty. That's it, yeah.
All right. This guy's doing a real shot, though, I think. Right?
Yeah, isn't that what a real man would do?
I'm not a real man then. That's
A
fine. I
real
don't
man
care.
with a little pink
Well,
shot
that's
glasses.
a double shot, Chuck.
No, I'm not doing
Miami.
There we go.
All right.
All right, you want to put that aside
There you
somewhere?
go. Here's to swimming with bow-legged women.
Can we do the Colombian thing, please?
Yes, okay.
Because I have respect
All right, here
for
we
El.
go.
So here we go. Pa
BBL.
arriba, pa abajo, el centro. You have to touch. Pa adentro.
All right.
This one's for Crow Cop.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not bad.
Wow, I think I just.
Yeah, that is not bad.
I think that just put more hair on my chest.
I gotta say,
Put this over here.
dude,
I'll put this back.
that is fucking way better than the Cannibal Corpse whiskey.
Dude, that's. Dude,
That's our basis for
Dude,
comparison.
I love Cannibal Corpse. That whiskey was fucking rock gut. I could not drink it.
No, I'm no, hard alcohol connoisseur, but
That's pretty sweet.
But that's
That is
better
pretty
than Connor's, dude.
Well,
Oh my
Connors is Connors. What would you call Connors? Connors is first of all, Connors is cheaper, like, literally to buy.
It's a well
not
drink.
expensive.
That's what it is. It's a well
It's
drink.
no, you know what it is? It's party. It's party.
That is.
It's party booze. That's what it is. Just party booze. Someone shows up with a bottle in the middle of summer.
The second one. Yeah.
You're fine.
Yeah. This is not bad.
I can't drink at all anymore. Can someone get me a Diet Coke
Heartburn.
and some Tampax? I mean, my lord.
Wow.
Used to chase that down with Pepto-Bismol, if I recall.
Yeah, dude.
MMA
It's,
beat days.
I quit drinking and like my need for Pepto-Bismol went away. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Yo, you never told me that story about being in a Turkish bathhouse with Douglas Crosby. That's unbelievable, right?
A Russian bathhouse. But yes, it was quite
All
interesting.
right, let's focus.
Yes. All right.
UFC 284, BC. You were asking the question. Let's pitch it around for the top. Chuck.
Yeah.
Top pound for pound slot in the sport.
I think so. This is one of those rare situations where you have a guy on a 12-fight winning streak, which is the longest right now in the UFC active fighters. A 12-fight win streak in Makhachev with Volkanovski versus an 11-fight win streak with Makhachev, which is, you put those two things together, becoming, two different champions, and I think that you could make the case that Volkanovski, I don't know if we've had this discussion, who your pound-for-pound king is right this second.
I don't think there's an argument.
Who is it?
It's Volkanovski.
Volkanovski. So that's mine too. So yeah, Volkanovski and Makhachev might be entering the space, and I think if he beats Volkanovski, he should take the space.
That in a 2-fight turnaround, and no shortage of great, status of the opponents that he faced here, Charles Oliveira into Alexander Volkanovski. Have we ever seen in a 2-fight stretch somebody? And it's not that he wasn't heralded or heard of or anything. I mean, we've been waiting for a long time for Makhachev to finally get his close up, and the Khabib rub has been a big part of the presentation. He didn't sneak up on anybody, but in 2 fights he can go from beating a guy who was on the verge of cementing himself all time in the books as the greatest finisher, as so many things, as an unlikely champion who turned his career around in the second half, to potentially beating Alexander Volkanovski. Granted, in a higher division, but dude, to go from unranked on a pound-for-pound level, great win streak, but damn, I want to see what he looks like on the elite level. To if he wins this, he's the best fighter in the sport. So look, when Khabib left, when Khabib retired on his own terms, we heard the tales. We heard that his late father, Abdul Manap, always pointed to Islam and said, after Khabib, you're next. Charles Oliveira turned out to somehow be and this won't be his reputation. He's not a transitional champion, but he was a transitional champion in the sense of Fedor handing the reins to Islam. And if he wins this, and there's nothing saying he will here necessarily, except for the odds. But man, he will go from being Fedor 2.0 to in 2 fights being the best fighter in the sport. Wow.
I mean,
right?
Part of his, and we're talking about Islam, part of the thing is that he was in the shadows of Khabib, right? Like he was coming up. I think he was considered a protege, all that sort of thing. But Khabib had 13 fights in the UFC, had 7 finishes. Islam right now has 13 fights in the UFC, has 8 finishes. You could already make the case that and his resume is what it is, right? Like obviously this Charles Oliveira one was the biggest fight, but going forward, he could pass the resume just because of the lightweights that are available. So this year alone, Islam, if he was to beat Volkanovski, defend that title once or twice, he might already pass. This is kind of crazy to say, but I think he could be in that discussion already for better than Khabib.
Wow.
Because if you look at it, they fought 13. Right now, if you're comparing them, right? Like if you're comparing the two guys, I know that he has the loss. Islam has a loss early in his career in the UFC. But if you just look at the strength of schedule at that point, especially, let's just say he plays out that scenario. He beats Volkanovski, who I think we just identified as the top guy, right? And this is a guy who played for the Wasilla Gorillas back in the day and weighed, 200 pounds?
I've never heard that story before. That's wild. Yeah. Wasilla, I can see Russia from my kitchen window. Yeah.
So, I mean, but I think that he could literally be that guy. We could consider him that because if he beats this one, wins like international fight when he wins one at the end of the year. I mean, he's done more, I think, than Charles. I think he's done more than Khabib.
All right, let's be honest here.
I'm not kidding.
Khabib has in one hand a sort of like asterisk hipster, extra powerful, sneaky argument of maybe even being the GOAT because he was unbeaten, he dominated, and he walked around on top. But the stigma will say, okay, but did you beat enough elite guys and did you do it in succession? But the elite guys he did face on the way out and the way that he beat them from
that is true.
From Conor to Poirier to Gaethje, I don't know. Does Islam best that
I'm just
already?
throwing it out there because
that Volkanovski win, if he does get it, you could argue is as good as meaningful and good in that situation. But I mean, just the fact
enemy
that
territory too.
You're not. He's not the kind of guy, Luke, that will make a preposterous statement to say it. Like Chuck is the voice of reason in the sport.
Possible. I really do.
On this show. So if he's even saying that, Luke, what Islam has done, it might not be Khabib 2.0. It's Islam Makhachev, right? It's his own thing. And damn, dude, he's ready to. Damn. I mean,
I just have to say, like, the thing that stands out to me is I really like how Khabib made a clean break from the sport and then really, I mean, obviously Islam and Khabib were in the UFC at the same time for a little while. There is some overlap. But in terms of like previous opponents or whatever, he was just doing his own kind of thing. This is his own kind of thing.
Right.
This is his own moment. This is his own path. Whether or not it's bigger, better than Khabib or 2.0, I just feel like he's trying to carve a unique identity that folks can remember for its own merits, its own big memories. The thing is now, we don't even know, is Khabib going to be cornering him in Perth? That part remains unclear. But I just feel like from an opponent standpoint, with the last one with Charles, which Khabib never fought, that was the biggest one of Islam's career. And then, the Thiago Moiseses and stuff like that and the Bobby Greens. But the reality is you get past Volkanovski, dude, you've done something so separate. And then between the two, it's like you add in Conor and you add in Gaethje and then you add in Oliveira and then you add in Volkanovski. It's such a broader body of work that I don't feel like we're going to be doing the Kobe Jordan thing. It doesn't feel
it only exists because they were already entwined as Islam was coming up, and then they fight in the same division. I think that's the only reason.
Same camp. I mean,
it's the same camp. It's like there are too many similarities and too many affiliations, so it's going to be inevitable. But I do think that he starts to distinguish himself on this card. If he wins, this is when he really starts to do it. I think he was quieter in his approach only because he was coming up at a time when there was a lot going on, but also he was in the shadow of Khabib. We talked about him as the protege for so long, but I think that this is the fight that puts him over in the bigger way. And then we do have that conversation. I'm just saying, at some point at the end of this year, we could revisit this and see if it's right. But I think that he could be the guy that we're talking about as the cream of the crop in the lightweight division, which is nuts. I never thought I would say that.
The way he frames narratives heading into big fights, I love that shit.
Why don't you just lean over and blow?
Why don't you just get a room? All right, on the flip side,
Let me move
guys,
this mic.
On the flip side, no shortage of stakes for Volkanovski, who's still unbeaten in the UFC cage, has put together.
I'm not quite done with old Islam just yet. Just real quickly.
Okay, he's not that old. I mean,
well, here's what I mean. Just before we move on to Volkanovski, the thing about Islam, though, that still does give me a little bit of pause about him, not as a fighter. He's obviously enormously talented, although, no one's perfect. But Khabib had a little bit of media savvy. He liked it a little bit. He was good at it. Islam is not good at it. And I think will do it by virtue of his occupational necessity. So here's my point. Even if he were to beat a guy like Volkanovski, which would be a tremendous achievement, it's in Perth, Australia. He just doesn't seem like a breakout superstar guy to me.
Well, there's a difference. It's a critical breakout if he does, because he becomes the number one pound for pound, especially if he wins it without any controversy or anything. But no, that won't be his commercial breakthrough moment. But it's like, what is more valuable in the long run? If you get wins like this one against Volkanovski, which has ultimate critical value, then the commercial ones tend to start piling up around the corner. Will it take, to be fair, will it take a Conor fight for Islam to get that type of commercial crossover? Or will it just be beat this guy, then beat the next guy in line, then beat the next guy in line?
I don't know if he has that. I honestly don't know if he has that separate thing. The funny thing about Khabib was he was kind of slow for people to get him too, because remember, it was the broken English. It kind of it came across almost as comical, most of the things he was saying, and then there was actually, tell me location, whatever, all those type of things.
Number one bullshit.
Yeah, number one bullshit.
I will smash your boy.
And I would smash your boy. He's talking to Dana as he's like beating dudes up, and I that to me was like when I was like, this guy is on a different level when he's talking to Dana. I'm not sure.
Habib had swag.
100%, man. And I remember talking to you after one of the shows. It was when he beat Conor McGregor, and that whole fracas took place afterwards, and we were like, you know what? You realize he's not playing, man.
No.
He is not playing. I get that vibe off of Islam, to be honest. I get the vibe that this guy he's that serious and all that stuff. So he's got that cold-bloodedness, I think, that you need. But I don't think he's going to have that sort of transcendent it factor, like charisma, all that stuff. I don't think that's him. It's going to have to be something else.
Normally when someone's in a position to potentially challenge or succeed someone else's standing reputationally as the GOAT of that division or whatever you're trying to do. And in this case for Islam, it's competing against the shadow of the resume of his coach and best friend, right? Khabib. It's like normally when you're in there, people they want to make you over-earn it before they finally give you that nod, because for so long they hear it coming and they see it coming that this is Khabib's boy coming from so long away that you're like, is it really? Is he ever as good? Dude, if he goes out there and beats Volkan, even though he's favored to do it, but if he goes out there and beats Volkanovski and you package it together with the wins that he's had, I mean, dude, we're going to be getting to a point where the Khabib relationship is going to be like like just part of his
secondary.
You know what I mean? Like it really is. You're right. It really is his chance to get. I mean, like because the way he beat Charles Oliveira. Now, when you sit on this couch, fair-minded Chuck Mindenhall, the most guy who is the bridge between our extremes, the guy who in this sport is the voice of reason. You're coming out here and saying, well, accomplishment-wise, he may be already passing Khabib in here.
He might be.
People aren't even fighting you on that because of the way he beat Oliveira, dude. Seriously.
And I mean, the way this sport has been going, nothing's out of question, is it? Like, it's just the way everything goes.
Well, look, the sport can be batshit crazy, especially when somebody getting a big finish in a big moment. And in Oliveira's run featured that. He almost gets stopped by Chandler, and suddenly he comes back over the top and he stops him. But, dude, he made that fight against Oliveira one-way traffic. Was the ultimate baptismal moment of you finally got your shot at the highest level. Oh, here's the greatest finisher in history. A guy who's on the verge of maybe becoming, considered the best in this division's history, trying to surpass your boy Khabib. And he comes out with that performance that I say normally people have to over-earn it. He, in some ways, Islam has already earned that respect that's sort of separate from Khabib.
It could be a foil.
Let me push back on this. So he's currently ranked number 2, Makhachev. But if you take out the Oliveira fight, which I realize is a huge fight.
Pound for pound ranked?
Yes.
Right. If you take him out, he wouldn't belong in it'd be Hooker, it'd be Bobby Green, it'd be Tiago Moises.
Yeah.
Dude, you wouldn't be on a pound-for-pound list that way. I mean, his win streak would be good, but you wouldn't be on it. You're going to tell me, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, I'm not saying I fully agree, but he is going to be the number 1 fighter in the sport with 2 wins?
Well, that's the remarkable part about this, but I think them ranking him number 2 pound for pound, and this is UFC doing it, correct?
Yeah, UFC.com.
And again, I mean, and in pound for pound in general, obviously, it's so subjective that you can argue. And what's the difference if someone's ranked 2 or 5th? Well, to me, in this case, there is a big difference. Makhachev was unranked in terms of the pound for pound top 10 that I do for CBS. I don't know if anybody cares about that. It is what it is. But my point is, when he wins a fight that big against Oliveira and wins it in the way he does, you're like, oh shit, he has to crash the party in ways that you don't normally see. So I went from unranked to I think about 4th. And it's acknowledged that he's probably going to climb higher than this, but I don't think you should put him at 2 unless your sole position from a marketing standpoint is to sell this fight in Perth as number 1 versus number 2. But at the end of the day, we are kind of splitting hairs.
Respect the journalists that make those votes, I believe. So,
but dude, if he does, but at the same time,
it's also if you're Makhachev, it would be 2 fights, and then the second guy you fought, he'd be moving up a weight class,
But name 2 fights in succession in recent history, if he wins this, where someone would have beaten 2 guys with higher collective standing in back-to-back fights. I know.
The biggest streaks. I mean, Oliveira also had a streak that was going on forever.
The 2 longest streaks against each other.
He'd be dousing 2 of the biggest streaks we've seen in the last decade.
I'm playing devil's advocate. I mean, I'm not saying I fully agree with what I'm saying, but it would be unusual to be pound for pound number 1 off just off 2 wins.
Unusual.
But I'll tell you what, to your point, I mean, let's talk about for just a second. Islam's win over Charles Oliveira. We previewed the fight on this particular program. Dude, he just did whatever he wanted, basically to him. And they
wasn't worried about the ground.
I did a huge breakdown on this, dude. They had I cannot overstate this. Him and Javier Mendez and Habib Nurmagomedov and whoever else on the team, they had a brilliant game plan. Yeah. They knew Oliveira better than he knew himself, and they took over him. And when it was time to go, they got him out of there with ease. I couldn't fucking believe how good it was.
And isn't how crazy this sport is? Because the Poirier fight versus Charles Oliveira was the fight that I'll admit, I was one of those that got it wrong ahead of time. Like, oh yeah, this is finally Poirier's moment. And as good as Oliveira's been great, and it's been great, dude, you take too many chances, it's going to catch up with you. And then he almost audited Poirier in a certain sense. I know you want to kick back and say you're wrong, BC. And the first round was kind of a normal
Definitely
first round.
Competitive.
But beginning with the second round, dude, I didn't think Oliveira was going to take down Poirier and then almost get gnarly and cover his mouth and be high ground and pound and just do a different side of him that we didn't see, that I started to go, like a lot of people, if you were still doubting Oliveira, that, oh shit, dude, not just a crazy finisher, not just a guy who can create chaos and get out of it before you gas or get stopped, but look what he just did to Poirier. He took him down, he controlled him, he was almost kind of quasi-dirty, and he just won that fight. And then in the next fight, he got completely sunned in almost the same way Poirier did in rounds 2 and 3. It's just like, holy shit, he got completely audited and handled and destroyed. Damn. So to answer your question, as unique as this is, if he does this in 2 consecutive fights, yes, he is the pound for pound number 1. But he needed Usman to lose to Edwards. And what if Usman comes back in March and beats Edwards and dominates him? We could be having a different conversation. But I do feel confident to say this is for number 1. And I do want to make that transition, because while we are framing the entire narrative here about what's at stake for Islam, damn, is there a lot at stake here for
Have you watched a lot of
Volkanovski.
Tape on Islam? Like, have you been watching it? What would you consider his weakness?
Well, not so much in the Oliveira fight, but he can be a little okay. There's not many things that are his weakness, but here's the way I would understand him. His defensive sensibility is extremely strong, okay? Doesn't take a lot of punishment, doesn't make a lot of bad calls. That limits his offense a little bit in the sense that he can't quite get going because he is so judicious with how he approaches everything. But I would say that if you have good takedown defense, he can be pressured into bad striking exchanges.
This fight is fascinating.
And that's really where Volkanovski, dude.
That's what I'm saying.
Either he's going to wrestle,
you're talking about,
not.
I was thinking about that with Volkanovski, like in the three fights with Holloway, right? Like just the different approaches he took. And I know you probably watched a lot of that trilogy, like going back, but just the different approaches, even with the takedowns, and just how he took them apart in the last one without even trying a takedown attempt, didn't need it. And I think that's one of those things. You're mentioning Islam having the perfect game plan. I do think that Volkanovski is a very good game planner and adjuster. It's a fascinating fight. And I'm not one of those guys who like goes into the stats big time, like, and looks at this, but you're talking about one of the highest accurate strikers in featherweight history going against the highest striking accuracy fighter in lightweight history. this is one of those fights where these dudes are both at like 60% and how they connect and the way that they go forward, the pressure that they put on, the kind of chess match that they play. You talk about like Makhachev, like I think some people are like, well, he'll be bigger, he can take him down. But then you think about like Volkanovski for a few minutes and you say, a couple of guys have taken him down, but I think, what was the last one? It was like Ortega took him down a couple of times and Chad Mendes took him down a couple of times. But for 45 total seconds of ground control, and like the other one was like a minute. It's like he gets back up. He doesn't lay there. It's fascinating from so many levels, and I feel like this is your kind of fight because there are so many trump cards in play for both guys, and you're not sure how it'll play out.
Yeah, and folks have like brought up the Ortega fights. The Mendes fight is a little bit more reasonable to me because that is sort of a wrestle boxer type, which Islam is a different body type, but could set up things in a similar way. But that was a long time ago, and the Ortega fight to me, it's like, guys, I have to warn you, like Volkanovski gets way better between fights, even in his 30s.
Yeah.
And if you think his wrestling is going to be as good now as it was in that Ortega fight, boy, you are sleeping on him big time. Big time. It's going to be vastly better. And the other part, too, is, like, here's the real reality. I think Makhachev is a pro. I think he's going to come in shape. He's not going to come in better shape than Volkanovski.
No way.
I don't believe that. Sorry.
Now, since twice I've tried to transition the show because you've put a lot of pressure on my pre-show. BC, don't linger. Don't stretch it out. Don't make me late for my train. And I've gotten no-sold twice on trying to talk about the stakes for Volkanovski and his resume, and that's fine. I do feel, okay to say, since you brought up Ortega, Chuck, and there are rumors of the demise of his relationship with Tracy Cortez because he did get the tattoo on the inside of his lip. Yeah. With her, if that's true,
I pray you get Ebola.
What do you do about that if you're Ortega? I mean, one sense it's on the inside of your mouth, so who cares? But what do you do?
This reminds me of that conversation we had about showing up with your significant other right before the fight. Remember, we had this whole thing. It's like, I don't know, that's a bad look, and sure enough, look what happened to him.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for T-City?
The production staff, I don't know if this is true because I would never get one. The production staff is telling me that tattoos inside the mouth go away.
Oh, wow.
Ah, interesting.
So thanks for derailing the show, Brian. Really.
Well, it's just
glad you're here.
Maybe you knew that.
It was just payback for your saltiness when we tried to get the alcohol and you dadded us, and it was a little awkward.
Is there any, like, when you think about this, I mean, I think the Makhachev going into enemy territory, I'm guessing it's going to be a partisan crowd, for Volkanovski. Is there any kind of, does that play any factor into this? Like when you go into a guy's
from the Dagestan tribe, from that Abdul Manap team, a protege of Habib, and didn't have that same mental toughness.
Dude, I think
that comes out of there.
Relish that.
That's what I was thinking. That's what I thought.
Look at Habib the night he fought Conor. He was never going to lose that fight.
Right.
Not that night. No. There was nothing Conor was going to do that night to win. It was never going to happen. And I think Islam, whether that happens or not, we'll see. But I think he has the exact. Those guys are. You bring up that. It's funny. The post fight Conor Habib card. We came back. I think you and I did a bit with Submission Radio, and you had because Habib came back and was like, I apologize to the commission, I apologize to everyone, but like I'm not really sorry, to be honest with you.
Yeah. and my dad's gonna kill me.
And my dad's gonna beat the shit out of me, and blah blah blah. And then Chuck was like, dude, Habib is cold, like not in a bad way, like ice cold, not worried about anything else. Anyone else. Islam to me is identical in that sense. That the comparisons, I think,
that's kind of for me. That's kind of one of those fun things about this card is like there's a potential that there's a spoiler that's going to just ruin that party because how it is. It's like this is. In that sense, in the fight world, right? And also, Volkanovski has been kind of doing the UFC solids, fighting all over the place. This is his homecoming fight. Like he's going home, finally getting the coronation and all that stuff since he's been the guy. And if he gets beat in this situation, right, it's just going to be a very bad vibe over there.
So let's, we love to do this on this program, which is what happens if, what happens when. So let's talk about a world where actually, let's go a little bit the reverse here. Let's talk about a world where Volkanovski wins. Right? And again, without controversy, whatever that means, stoppage or great decision or whatever. But the 145-pound champ would go up. He would now be the double champ. I think most people would agree at that point. He was already number one, but that would really solidify him at that point.
It wouldn't be about pound for pound anymore. It'd be about where is he at in history. That's what it'd be about.
Okay, so tell me, so if he wins that double champ, do you have to put him now in the pantheon of greats?
Look, in some degree, it's an unfinished argument until we see where Islam would go from there after losing his title. Would there be an immediate rematch? Could he come back and win it again or be a long-term contender? But as the stock of Islam Makhachev right now, and the fact that Volkanovski would be moving up in weight, and the fact that Volkanovski would be coming off a calendar year in which he I mean, aided to some degree, of course, by the head kick loss for Usman. But even if Usman didn't lose that, you wonder if Volkanovski would have passed him on a pound-for-pound level that same year, because he went in there, okay, late replacement against Korean Zombie, but showed an offensive intention and a danger with his striking. Oh, he's a formidable striker, but we always talk more about the footwork, the game planning, the wrestling, the anti-wrestling, everything about him. Dude, he went in there and was, like, dangerous. And on top of that, he went into a trilogy with Max Holloway that was unnecessary and he didn't really necessarily want, but the whole sport put the pressure on him.
Yeah.
And, dude, he beat up and bloodied Max. So... damn. So you talk about like historically, I don't, that's why I tried to transition twice. I don't know what this really means. I mean, we know what it means in the sense that there's a handful of greats that have been 2 division champions. You know, there's a Cormier, especially simultaneously. There's been, you know, Nunes and Cormier and Conor McGregor and even Cejudo. And even though the feat slightly got watered down because of the number of times it happened, you're still talking about the greatest fighters in history. Cejudo still has to do a little bit more, but he's already put forth a solid foundation. Makhachev right now and Alex would be moving up in weight. Are you kidding me? If he goes in there and wins that, I mean, and like,
that's an interesting one.
When you consider the run he's on, he's never lost in the UFC. He's always had a way in a potential dark moment against Ortega where he could have lost. That could have been his GSP Sarah moment, even though I don't think Sarah and Ortega were on the same level at that point. But you get my point. Damn, dude.
Would it be, I mean, I'm trying to think of the
equivalent. There's levels of moving up in weight, right? There's levels of getting your second title. The GSP moving up against Bisping was a freaking big deal. I mean,
the Amanda Nunes one would be closest because she went and beat Cyborg, which to me was kind of like this, right? Like where you're like, well, now you have a mountain to topple here. Like, are you going to be able to do that? I think that would be it. But the thing is, this isn't the women's featherweight, right? Like it would be, there were a lot of guys then who would want the piece, and we would get to see what that means. But I think that would be. It's got to be right up there. It's got to be right up there.
Because he would be doing it already as the pound-for-pound number one.
Especially if he looked good doing it like he's been. Because the last couple of fights, I mean, like you said, there wasn't big incentive. A lot of times you look at a guy going into a fight and you're like, will he be able to get up for a third Max Holloway fight? He's beat him twice, even though there's like some controversy or people talking in a different way. And he puts him away even, you know, more emphatically, just dominates the fight. I mean, I don't know. I think if he has a very good showing, that you could probably have that conversation, right? It would be more of a I think you're making historical. You would be doing that, which is kind of crazy because both these guys have quietly reached these stations to the point where, like I said, Volkanovski hasn't even had like these home field advantages where he can go home and be celebrated for who he is really yet. Like he's not even to that point, but you could actually start to have that because it's been such a quiet dominance for so long.
And it goes without saying because we know it, but don't forget when Oliveira fought Makhachev, it was the first time in UFC history that win streaks as long as 12 for each fighter was part of it. And now we go one more because Volkanovski has an even longer win streak. That this is the first time it's even one up from there. So the level of rareness and the historic elements to begin with for this fight.
That scene's going to be mad.
But if he wins both, he's going to drop one. Does he drop the 145-pound title? Because it's like, oh, I defend both. Bullshit, you can't. No, stop.
Because look, because the key question that he has to answer to us, I think right now, until we see this fight, it isn't as much, although the argument of even if he was already Islam's weight, could he still win this? We don't know how great Makhachev is. But when you add in the idea of him moving up in weight, that's what he has to solve. So if he goes in there and solves that and becomes the champion against arguably the toughest guy this division could produce, you're right. Why not just stay at 155? Because you just proved against the best guy.
If you can beat Islam Makhachev in your first fight at lightweight,
I know.
Stick around.
So I want to ask you this question, Luke, because you have been a long time appreciator of Volkanovski, and long before, you know, I was skeptical for a while that he was really
here's the Luke Thomas experience. Hey, here's a very sensible idea. Fuck you, motherfucker. I hope your family dies of AIDS.
Yeah, so
6
Luke,
months later, Luke, you had a point with that.
There's already an argument, again, just on a style level and how good Makhachev is, and if he controls you with his wrestling, it may not matter anyway. But how much does the weight and moving up in weight actually play into whether Volkanovski can win this fight? Because he did used to weigh 220 pounds, whatever the story.
Yeah,
we know that.
I think he is strong for the weight class, for 145. I think he will still be strong for 155. He'll obviously have a low center of gravity. He'll be able to scramble. But I don't think from a pure strength perspective, he's going to be able to, over time, match Makhachev. Even Holloway had times where he could shut him down, or heavily nullify him. Obviously, there were also times that Volkanovski broke through and got takedowns. But the question for me is not really on the offensive side for him. It's merely a function of what will his defensive work rate be once the grappling situations begin? How quickly can he advance even minor positions to build on top of each other to scramble? And how much can he consistently do that while forcing trouble on Islam? So, for example, imagine a round passes where Islam is really trying to hold him down and does, but just can't really get any offense off, right? Then decides that was really exhausting, I'm going to dial it back. And now you're trading with Alex. His ability to disguise offense is second to none, quite honestly. Yeah. That could become a problem. But I hate to oversimplify a fight between two people so skilled, and I'm sure I am in many ways. But honestly, either Volkanovski can defensively wrestle enough, or he fucking cannot. And if he cannot, it's a wrap for him.
Well,
that's it.
Okay, but you're right. You're right. At the end of the day, you're right.
Volkanovski, let's say this we should make this clear. Makhachev, again, I cannot overstate this. The game plan that they had for Oliveira was so good. It was. I know you didn't watch that video I put out because I put it on my private channel, but you should.
Yeah, because you're like, I'm just gonna. We got a lot of great success with MK, but let me also compete against my own channel.
I wasn't. I'm not competing. I'm not competing against. And I wasn't the one who was told to put it there. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, when you go through, you can see very clearly they knew exactly what punches they would need in exactly what scenarios. And dude, they just pattern recognition, muscle memory. They knew exactly what to throw. You're not going to get that with Volkanovski. Well, you're not going to get that.
While the wrestling ultimately, we think, dictates who wins this fight, I want to ask you about Islam Makhachev striking, because I do think against Oliveira, in addition to the insanely great game planning, I thought from what my eyes show me, and people think my eyes are just filthy casual, that dude, he made a leap in terms of his striking and the ways he was able to use the left cross to hurt Oliveira. But to be fair, Oliveira does get hurt, and it's almost, in a weird way, part of his strategy to create so much chaos and have him back and forth. That can Makhachev strike on this level against Volkanovski, which is like going from checkers to chess?
I was just thinking, I think you're right, too. I don't think it's oversimplifying. I think that's kind of what the drama is up front. And if for some reason Volkanovski is thwarting those attempts or getting up, and it's hard to imagine him getting up easily as he's done in the past, but if he's able to do that, it's one of those fights where you're like, it could be Islam early, Volkanovski late. Right. You know what I mean? Where it's just Volkanovski just starts to wear you down once he breaks your spirit a little bit, shows
once
you can't do
sweaty,
that.
Once he's able to figure out and anticipate them.
Look at the second Max fight. He won the last 3 rounds, right? He came on?
Yes, he got dropped, or they didn't count on a fight metric, but he basically got dropped
twice in the first
2. Yeah.
Interesting stuff, Chuck.
Sorry, we just cut you off there because that's what we do on the show.
Well, Chuck didn't answer my question. It's one thing that my eyes can tell me against Oliveira that Islam striking did make a leap. But even if it did, is it on the level to compete if the wrestling does get taken away?
He's actually right now a higher percent of efficiency of a striker. But of course, we can see, we've watched Volkanovski, we know what he does. And I think that his striking setups and everything, his combos, and just the unpredictability. All of that stuff. I'm like, I just think that he brings something that nobody's bringing right now. I mean, he's just his style, his pressure, and just the mixing up of attacks is a lot. So I would be surprised if Makhachev is able to just stand in there and trade with him and not clinch and try to make it dirty.
He's not going to trade with him.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Not for very long.
Yeah.
Not for very long.
So, I mean, but these are all fascinating layers, especially because I do think that Islam, I think you're absolutely right. Both guys are so cerebral. I really doubt, though, that Islam's going to fall into that Ronda Rousey trap and believe that he's going to outstrike. No. You know what I mean? I don't think that he's going to do something like that.
Dude, he makes good decisions.
Yeah.
And he has natural head movement.
He really does.
Natural head movement.
When going back on the tape and just kind of watching, I'm like, that's what I realized. He's just
smart fighter.
Very smart guy.
Smart. And I want to say, we've been talking about the AKA guys and how good they've been and Team Habib. The Freestyle Fighting Academy and I think that's the name of the gym, and then as well as obviously City Kickboxing, the two sort of combined, the ones that he had from Australia, his old coach, I think his name is, Joel Ortiz. I forget his name. Please forgive me. I'll double check on this. But in any case, having his old coach and then obviously Eugene Behrman out of City Kickboxing, dude, we're talking collectively between the AKA guys and all those guys.
Yeah,
we're talking two of the. I know people know this, the very best teams, but I mean in terms of game planning and which T's get crossed and which I's get dotted, these are the two best teams maybe in all of the sport. Like, we're just talking a level of game planning and specificity that is very much ahead of their contemporaries.
And dude, as I said,
a guy who absorbs it and does it, executes it.
Yes.
and the guy in Volkanovski who absorbed against Ortega punishment, was in a precarious situations and was so calm and cool. That does add to the equation of why I can't wait to see this fight and who could cancel each other, who can get out of bad situations. Damn, man.
It's the most anticipated fight of the first quarter of the UFC schedule.
This is
more than Gone and Jones.
Well, I guess that one's much bigger from a promotional standpoint.
But just
again,
in your
we're
mind,
recording this before John's been, done something other.
So whether or not you
thing
believe Makhachev is number 2 pound for pound, as the UFC say, or 4 as I say, or anything around 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm trying to think of fights in history that either were in some argument 1 versus 2 pound for pound, or 1 or 2
St. Pierre versus BJ Penn.
2 top 5 guys at least. I mean, what were the most recent top 5 guys? I mean, trying to think.
Yeah, no, but dude, the first big one was St. Pierre Penn.
Yeah.
Well, not the first St. Pierre Penn, which was Penn's return to the organization after being on a bit of a sojourn. I think that's right. But it was actually their second meeting when one was lightweight, one was welterweight.
UFC 94.
Yeah, so it was a champ fight actually, and Penn got handled.
Yeah, he made the mistake of saying beforehand to GSP that only a bitch taps on strikes. You know?
The closest is probably Cormier Jones, right? Like, in terms of
Cormier Jones,
in terms of the guys who are maybe at the very top of the pound for pound list, kind of going at it. At the moment, that would be up
rare,
there.
man. I love.
We didn't have a pound for pound list at the time.
True.
But some of GSP's rivals, like Koscheck, a little bit there.
You don't mean that.
Some of the Couture and
pound for pound.
Couture and Liddell at the time, the title was changing hands. You could have argued then as well. Again, we didn't have official pound for pound rankings, but something like that. Nevertheless, we do have another fight on this card that is quite good that we should spend some time on. Namely, your co-main event. It is an interim featherweight title because the featherweight champion's got a little bit of business to do in the main event. But it's when Yair Rodriguez takes on Josh Emmett for the interim featherweight strap. And I got to tell you,
love it.
They just don't come much more explosive. BC, I'm not sure that they're the two very best guys out of featherweight, although maybe we'll see. But I'm pretty sure that they're extremely high level and they're going to, true or false, kill each other.
They're going to try at least. And it's like, you love seeing somebody hardworking who's been overlooked before, and Josh Emmett get this. It's not for the full title, but it's close enough for the interim title. The winner is going to get a big title shot, and it's a big opportunity. And, dude, that guy's had to go through hell to get to this point. And whether or not you thought, what was the real close fight Emmett had on this journey? It's off top.
Calvin Kattar.
Calvin Kattar fight. And you could certainly make a case in that regard. But, dude, a guy who's figured out through some crazy injuries and setbacks, and our Room Service Diaries interview with him just allowed me to understand on another level how his mental toughness and his drive and his will is of the second to none warrior elite status. But to win this fight, if you're Josh Emmett, you have to willingly walk into hell, which is a place that he loves to go in these fights, and it's almost his game plan.
Man.
But you're going in there with a guy who's very, he has a special set of skills for this exact type of fight in Yair Rodriguez, who I still don't really know how great he is, but dude, the fight he wanted to get to this point. Let's be honest. It was finally that was it against Ortega? It was finally to me, it was finally like, okay, he really is ready. This is really his time. Let's see if he can get to the title level. I don't see any other way where if Josh Emmett's going to win this, that he doesn't have to go through a horror movie to get there, dude. This is going to be.
He's willing, though.
He's going to be wild.
He's going to get disfigured to win this.
His level of perseverance really is the thing, right? Like, I really believe he's just in his life. You're talking about the injuries, but even in his fights, I mean, the Calvin Kattar fight, he was outstruck cumulative. Actually, I think the last 3 of his fights, he was cumulatively outstruck in all of them, and he won them all somehow because he turns it on when he needs to. He makes it ugly when he needs to.
He's like a pride throwback fighter.
Yeah, he is 100%. He was losing during the streak, but the beginning of the streak against Michael Johnson. Remember that fight? He's losing a very lackluster fight. They're barely engaging. But he's just waiting for that one shot, and he one punch KOs him like with a minute to go in the fight. I mean, he's just never out of the fight, and that adds a level of drama to it. But I think that he believes in himself, and that's always that's a fun thing to watch. He's 37 years old. He probably doesn't get back here again.
No,
this is his shot.
No, and he almost didn't get the shot. To be fair, he probably he could have just as easily been offered another number 1 contenders-ish fight, and could have another war with a Kattar type guy, and could come up empty on the scorecards in a close fight. I mean, he almost didn't get here, but the fact that he did And the fact that certain key parts of luck needed to align for him to get to this point, and the fact that you say he has not only next level belief in himself and mental toughness and forget willing to take on punishment, it's like the only way he knows how. That's a very dangerous intangible to have. And as much as Yair is as explosive and insane, and like Charles Oliveira, can make such great decisions within chaos, unlike anybody else. Dude, you are going to have to remove Emmett physically from this fight to beat him, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Two things real quickly. By the way, just a correction on me. For the coach for Volkanovski is Joe Lopez. Excuse me. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you know what I love about this fight is you would think this would be with Yair, but it's really not the case. Neither one was exactly the favorite son of the UFC.
Right.
Yair was for a time, but then fell out. They cut him, and it was a huge thing. He found his way back. He really worked on his craft. Nearly got beaten by Korean Zombie before doing fucking ninja magic. But, he's definitely had, and he had that weird fight in Mexico City with Jeremy Stevens.
Yeah.
And there's just a bunch of times where it's been like, he's definitely very important for the promotion.
One, right? Like, because of the injury.
Yes.
Ortega,
it's just been weird with him a little bit. And Emmett is the guy who, his style just speaks to his life story. He's actually very clever offensively, uses movement and big power. But defensively, not that great, kind of gets hit a little bit, but then just fucking wills through it and then finds a way to bring it all together. But neither was a promotional darling, and here they have found themselves much later in his athletic life, obviously, for a guy like Emmett to get here. I love those stories. I love the stories when someone was never the favorite son.
Right.
And then just...
Never even, highlighted. Never really a...
Yair, to be fair, Yair was highlighted in certain ways.
Yair was. I was talking about Emmett.
But
Emmett was never really highlighted through his career. It wasn't like they were throwing him on fight night main events. I think the last one was, but before then it was kind of like he's just a guy on a card.
Dude, I remember seeing him the first time was one of his fights, and then the next time I saw him was on a podcast I listened to in the Strength World, Mark Bell's I think it was Powercast at the time with Silent Mike, and he had fucking Josh Emmett on, and I'm like, oh, that's a bit of a cool story. This is all right. But he was just a guy that they had on at the time,
I know.
By the way, you're right. The Rodriguez fight against Ortega was ended early with the
shoulder,
with the injury to him. I did think in the short piece that we saw, Yair is at another level, but it was the Max Holloway fight, which was a loss that I meant to really reference.
Yes.
That showed me, even in a loss, that he is truly ready for this elite level. Let's not forget, especially was it the first round, dude? He put shots on Holloway that would have finished anybody.
He's got another gear too. That's what makes this one kind of fun. Because Yair, you kind of look back at his career. He's kind of been a lone wolf, a nomadic presence, and kind of does marches to his own beat, all that sort of thing. Shows up not as prolifically as you think he will, but here he is in the spot. It's just he's a weird guy, but his fights often turn into performance of the nights because he just won't quit either. He just keeps bringing it, and that's combustible, right? When you think about that type of matchup, it's pretty crazy. Do you think they made the right call? I know that in the end, at first I did not think that this was the right fight to make, but as it's gone on, I feel okay.
I would have been happy giving Emmett a title shot against Volkanovski.
Yeah.
But given what we talked to Josh Emmett the week of the third Volkanovski-Holloway fight, and just given how well Volkanovski beat Holloway, then what Islam did against Charles, making that fight very important and very interesting, meaning he can't defend it. Now it makes sense. Also, it's not Yair's fault that Ortega's shoulder did what it did, and who's to say what it would have meant, but he was piecing Ortega up before that. Let's not forget
100%.
that. And so it's to me, man, again, to your point, I love the way you put it, the nomadic sort of style of those, or identity of a guy like Yair, but at the same time, so creative, so artistic. You know what I love about his style? It's very flashy, but also fucking mean. A lot of the mean guys are control you, put your hands on you types, and he's more, fucking wow, all that. That's what he's doing, and it is both acrobatic and at the same time devastating. I love that combination. That's a rare combination in a guy. Plus, he doesn't Wonder Boy Thompson, his more recent fights, he's been getting touched up a little bit, but he does a lot of the touch and go. Not Yair. He will absolutely stand in there and give and trade. He's also got that Mexican boxer spirit in him. So he's this brilliant combination that makes him unruly and probably for the UFC a little bit hard to corral or whatever, but it's so unique and it's so fun.
It makes me fear for any potential scar tissue on Josh Emmett's face and in the future of his cheekbones and all that. But Emmett told himself on the RST coach, he almost like dumbed down his style and was like, "No, this is what I do every fight."
Yeah, we asked him what his game plan was. He was like,
You think?
come out there and throw punches and
It's like I
brawl."
just kind of rock with it.
It's hilarious to me that he can wrestle. If you go back and watch like his earlier,
grew up
that's
wrestling.
what I mean.
That's
He's a
what-
collegiate
so that
wrestler.
was the setup for my
always-
question.
But you're always like, dude, why not just mix some of that in? Like, he just wants to go out there and bang, like you're saying. But like, he's looking for those shots and he'll take them to get them. But I'm like, sometimes I'm like, dude, just take the guy down and beat him
So
up
my
on the ground.
question to you was, if you get into this type of war with Yair that he's just used to getting in, meaning Emmett, I don't know if that's going to work, dude. I don't know. I
would
don't know
mix
if
it
you can
up.
outlast this guy in a war because Yair is that explosive, flashy,
True.
and just loves that shit. You got to go back. You got to take him down. What's Yair's history with takedown defense on this level here?
I have to look up the numbers. I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, Frankie Edgar gave him the business quite a while
that
ago.
fight
That was a humbling
And
win.
he has been.
Humbling loss.
I would say his. I would call it porous. It's porous.
Yeah, he got blasted. It was like he had I remember that fight very specifically. He had like
It's been some time, in fairness to him.
15 punches that he
Oh,
landed.
but he even
absorbed like
even Max got him down and was able to pass.
Yeah.
Remember to mount, I believe, for a time. So
I mean, I'm just saying
it's there for the right guy. It's there.
Well, Emmett, I think if he's getting pieced up, and again, I think that Emmett tends to get pieced up a little bit. He's one of those guys who kind of activates in a fight when he's feeling that, and starts to bleed. But at the same time, I'm like, if I'm feeling that and it's going a certain way, I'm not going to let the gold slip through my hands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If I'm him, I would incorporate some of that, make it a little ugly, take him down here. You know what I mean? Mix it up a little bit.
He's one of those guys, and it comes from Teddy Atlas. Dustin Poirier has made him more famous recently, but it's like, basically 30 minutes to make life fair or whatever the length of the bout is.
5 minutes, yeah.
that's a good
He's
one,
one of the, I know, it's a great thing. I was like, dude, he's one of those guys who's trying to make life fair. And when you have a hunger like that, plus his athletic ability, plus again, he uses a lot of motion to set up and get in and out of opportunities, which is clever, which is modern. He doesn't have a modern skill set. It's so foolish to sleep on a guy like that.
That's why it's rare at this level that we would bring up an intangible and comparing the guys and say, well, this guy really wants to win it really bad. But dude, that's a superpower for Emmett. It fuels his offense. It fuels his style. It's dangerous and it brings on a lot of cuts and swelling and aggressiveness. But like, dude, if you're Rodriguez, you're gonna have to knock him out cold to beat him.
They really need a tidy something. Something has to happen that's tidy and understandable and relatable, right? Like it has to be definitive. It has to be definitive whatever happens. If there's some weird controversy to this fight with Arnold Allen kind of out there and now the vacant, like for the interim, I want that division to finally kind of get some clarity again. And I feel like given Yair, especially like his thing and the split decision with Cater for the other side, it could be another weird one. There could be some weird scorecard or something. It could be a controversy that way. I guess my only rooting interest in that is this, that we're clear, right? Because then the next fight tells you the next part of the story, whether it's going to be Volkanovski, you know what I mean? Or if he's going to be,
title becomes the full one,
exactly,
yeah.
or if it just becomes the full thing. So there's a lot of drama just in the build-up to this one card.
That's a good point. There is a connection there with the main event in that regard. Where
what would you rather have? The winner fight Volk? I mean, I guess you would always rather have the winner fight the champion to unify. But if Volk beats Islam, it's like, what's the fucking point, honestly, right?
it's hard. It's like knowing Emmett's story so intimately from interviewing him, and it's like, man, it's hard not to cheer for him. But which matchup would I rather see? Dude, I would love to see if Yair gets this done against Volkanovski.
Yeah, that would be a good fight.
In terms of the remaining opponents left for Volkanovski, whether or not he wins a second championship, that's a great ass fight.
you think it's a
that we're
foregone?
building to, and I don't think it's a foregone conclusion who wins that fight. I'm just saying if that ends up being the way, I wouldn't mind seeing that as potentially.
Well, if Volkanovski wins, a foregone that he's just staying. You think he wouldn't try to do both? If all the people who
depends
said
on the
that they would
UFC,
do
dude.
it,
It depends on the
This is a
UFC.
guy who went and made weight for a fight he wasn't going to be in. Like Volkanovski, like
It's just the reality of like, if you
understand.
get injured, like
True,
it's just
100%.
hard to do.
Let's be
but if
fair,
anybody
though.
could play it for maybe like a little stretch,
maybe a
It
little bit.
depends if the promotion allows him. Let's be fair about
True.
the history of this.
That is
Amanda Nunes, there's nobody in either division for
true.
long stretches. She kind of was just allowed
Yeah,
to
she can chill.
populate both. Connor was forced to make an instant decision. They let him hang on to the belt a long time when he was inactive. Cormier, they basically stripped the second one from him pretty quickly and made him pick and choose. So
Also, here's the other part too. If Volk ends up beating Islam, right? And so now they want to make whoever wins between Emmett and Yair the main champion. Dude, old Max Holloway's got brand new life
that is
at
true.
100.
That's
That's
what
5
happens.
pounds.
Yes, 100%.
So Max already fucking beat Yair, and Emmett would be a tough fight. I think we'd all agree. But That's very winnable
That's a
for
great
Max. So then you're right back to, I mean, you know, Max's career has looked very uncertain to this point since losing. There's a lot of ways where he could have a great opportunity.
Sometimes all you got to do is chill out, man. Just hang out on the sidelines and see what happens.
Just let the brain
The
heal.
entire
and come
division has to be cheering for Volkanovski to win this main event.
Yeah,
Just
dude,
move
because
on.
he's so much, dude. The way, I mean, this breaks my heart to say because I love Max as a person, as a fighter, as a figure to cover. But he got
too.
Huh?
He likes shoot too. I think.
Yeah. No, I get along great with him, but. Dude, I hate to say he got dummied by Volkanovski in that third fight. Yeah. Him and his team, they're all smart guys.
Yeah.
They just didn't know what to do. They must be like, go beat that fucking guy's ass from Russia. Please just leave.
You ever see the movie Booty Call when they're watching those rhinos go at it and Tommy Davis is like, wax that 4,000-pound ass? That's what I think about when you say that, Luke.
All right. Well,
You reference fights when you're watching movies like that. Hey,
That reminded me a lot of,
we just have a few minutes left. Very quickly, also on this card, one of the interesting fights, Randy Brown taking on Australia native.
Talk about going into a hornet's nest.
Yeah,
Jesus
Jack
Christ.
Della Maddalena, who had I think he went to decision but went to like the third round on his Contender Series bout and has since just one round dusted everyone off. Looked incredible in his most recent fight. Previous to that, had beaten Ramazan Ameev. Just looks like a phenomenal striker.
Hardest question I can ask you about this fight. I'm going to take the reins from you.
All right.
Okay. This is a tough fish fight in Randy Brown. Okay, but he's getting Mr. Bob Dabalina is getting a big featured placement bout here in his home
100%.
city, as you mentioned,
That
in
could be big
Perth,
pressure,
right?
though, too. Everybody's asking for tickets
Is
and
this
shit.
the down under Patty? And I don't mean to. I'm not saying is
Get the fuck
no, but
out of
only
here.
in terms of he's just like Patty just got a big opportunity in a co-main out of a pay-per-view. This isn't a co-main, but it's a big push for Jack Della Maddalena, who showed us a lot.
I think you made the point before we started taping. You go ahead. You can take it.
Wow. What a silly ass question.
I'm not okay, but you misinterpret the meaning. I'm basically saying
Is he a down under Patty? First of all, that just sounds bad. I mean, just as three words you could put
children's
together.
book. I like it.
But no, he is.
Are they giving him the Patty placement spot to go out there and shine? That's
Randy
basically-
Brown is tougher than any opponent, and Jared Gordon's good. But Randy Brown is tougher than any opponent Patty has faced, even relatively speaking. Like, no, Randy Brown is good.
Dude's on a nice streak right now.
4-fight
I guess
win
the only
streak.
way to answer this is how much does Jack
finished
charge for
off-
interviews, right?
Jesus.
Say what?
How much he charges for interviews? That's how
Yeah,
we make
funny.
it. That would be the comparison, though.
No, he finished off Alex Oliveira. Like, Randy Brown has put together a very commendable run here, and he can strike. He's very rangy.
Probably at the peak of his powers, honestly.
Probably. This is the best I've ever seen,
Yeah.
to be clear. But Jack Della Maddalena is very good.
Dude,
He's very talented.
people think I say the stupidest things. I know that, but his aura screams that he's competent and ready for big things.
Yeah,
you know,
there is a question about his broader skill set, how he mixes it all together. But just on his boxing, like, oh my God, his boxing is fucking.
Well, the great thing about him is if he does do that and treats it as a turnstile fight, goes right through Randy and like has that home crowd experience, I think that'll translate big. And then, unlike Patty, I think the UFC could actually begin the escalation for him, right? Like you could begin the real escalation, be like put him against the top 15 guy,
Yes.
on and on. That's the big difference with Patty. I feel like he's nowhere near ready for that. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
also, I wanted you to say what you said back before we started, which was...
have the balls, all right? Have the balls.
Well, I forgot what it is at this point.
It was something along the lines. So the difference is that
Jack doesn't
Jack is
suck.
good. Yeah, he's actually good.
Patty is not
Something
bad,
along
but
those-
Patty is really good
Yeah.
on the ground, and that's really about it.
Right. Exactly. That's it.
Jack, we don't know the full breadth of his game, but on his feet, he is very, very talented.
Knows his way around the weight room too. Not necessarily the backzilla like Ian Heinisch, which
There's not many Ian
you could
Heinisch.
probably
young,
only
right?
get in the can, but
He's like pretty young too, right? He's like 20.
I think he's like 27,
20, okay.
something like that.
But still young. I mean, not even not to his prime, and he's probably going to stack some fights here. I mean, he's kind of set up to be a pretty good sensation. I mean, who's
And
from
he's-
Perth? I mean, he's
he's
gonna
an
be the guy from
oceanic
Perth.
guy in a division in which two of the three biggest names are oceanic all-time greats in this era.
All right, so let's quickly run through the rest of these fights here, see what you guys think.
There's not much else to talk about, Luke.
No, there's not. Justin Taffa, Parker Porter, anyone care?
Well, Parker Porter's from Hartford, Connecticut,
Yeah,
so
he is,
shout out.
actually, yeah.
Oh,
He's
you know what? I
probably
may have read it wrong. So hold on. So the main card might open with Jimmy Crute versus
That would make
Alonzo
sense.
Menafield.
That makes sense because
So that's a weird fight because Menafield, I think, is a great athlete with dynamic power and fast hands. Not sure there's a whole lot else behind that.
Exactly. And Crute, either his
Crute-
feature famine.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
he's
Crute's
gonna-
either like shining or just kind of getting run over a little bit.
When are you going to contest my standing of King of Connecticut in the MMA space? Not, compared to Glover, who when he won the title, he definitely
Tyson
took
Pedro's
it
on
from
the
me.
card.
Or, you can, you talked to Brendan Ward, another guy with Connecticut magic there. But, Dana White was born in Manchester, Connecticut.
That's right.
A lot of people don't want to talk about
I just
that.
saw
Yeah,
that.
well, I was born in New Delhi, India. Big deal.
Yeah, and you also
Were you
don't
really?
recognize-
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he won't. He tries to claim that because he was born in the American embassy.
No, and it was actually born in the British High Commission.
Because he was born in the British High Commission, that he wasn't technically born in India, even though it's within the damn,
It says New Delhi on my passport.
Okay.
Because you stepped
That's
in that building,
fascinating.
you're
I
in
didn't know.
sovereign territory. It's like on a cruise where I could do anything at
It
age
is
16.
diplomatic territory, but obviously once you're off that, you're on like regular.
What do you remember about it? Was it a
I left at 6 months old, so nothing.
He lived in Doha and
I lived
Japan.
in
after
Japan
that.
after that. Yeah.
really?
Tokyo?
Yeah.
Man,
Damn, nice.
crazy man.
Yeah.
Great.
I've had a stupid life. It's
Yeah.
really weird. Yeah.
Yeah,
Now you travel to places.
There was
like
a guy
Minnesota.
on my freshman high school. On my freshman college dorm hall at the end of the hall. He was fully American, but went to the Thai International School for American, like who there's kids. His dad was like a big telecom guy, and so they sent him to like the American school. It's like I was like, so you grew up in Bangkok? He's like, I've been in Bangkok for 18 fucking years.
Wow.
But he was like fully American, like had no accent, like nothing.
Chuck, what's your full name again? It's a fantastic book.
George Charles Mindenhall IV.
What is the...
Shouldn't you like? That sounds like a slave holder's name.
Oh, get out of here. I was going to ask you, since you are a descendant of like legitimate
Slaves.
Colorado mountain men,
We were servants back
who
then.
was George Charles Mindenhall the first, and what was his story?
He lived in the Leadville,
just checked
Colorado.
out. Yeah.
He lived in Leadville, Colorado, and he got blown up in a mine at 1926.
Damn.
Yeah.
Was his dad a 1849er?
And his dad, his dad was George II, my grandfather, and he grew up in Leadville. It was all the mountain people.
No, George the First dad. Was he a gold rusher?
I don't have a ton of information. He was the immigrant, though.
I bet they
his
were all
father was the
outlaws,
immigrant.
yeah.
Anyway, this is not.
I bet they didn't respect.
I have to take a dump.
They didn't. I bet George the First didn't respect prohibition a damn bit, right?
Oh no, that's not.
All right, where can folks find your work, Chuck Mindenhall?
Themyth.com, MITH, or
can
you
buy
can
this
check
hat at
out
The Myth,
Yeah,
yeah.
I wanted that hat. Get me one of those bad boys, or what else? The Ringer MMA show, which happens around every event, pretty much. So every Thursday, sometimes Friday for the weigh-ins, and then after the shows, a lot of times.
Sweet.
Yeah,
There you go.
You can find my work in a few places as well.
There it is.
Yeah.
there it is.
Oh, was it Friendly Pipes? What's the name of your site?
Only pipes.
Only pipes.
Well, you can watch my Patreon show. Hey, by the way, how about this tiger thing? That was good.
I gotta say, it was
That
actually pretty good. It wasn't.
Yo, Brendan,
it was
I like
sweet.
that.
It was sweet.
Yeah.
Quite literally, it's like sweet to the taste.
What's this Asian writing here?
What the fuck do I look like? A translator?
Well, is it supposed to be like some kind of hybrid?
So it's supposed to be blended Japanese whiskey and
Japanese,
bourbon.
okay.
Yeah, 20%.
The sweetness has to come from the bourbon, right? Like,
Yeah, 80% Indiana straight bourbon whiskey, 20% Japanese whiskey.
there you go. Well, it's not cheap, Brendan. Jesus Christ. I can say that.
Yo, Brendan, you should get a Delta 8 spinoff.
sponsor the show.
Tiger. If he makes
Tiger High.
Tiger Thick Kratom.
I don't know if they would sell that. But okay, that's it for us. That's Brian Campbell. That's Chuck Mindenhall. I'm Luke Thomas. This has been your UFC 284 pregame preview. We're out. We're done. It's over for us. Enjoy the fight.
Yeah,
Marco.
yeah, just like Men would or something. Yeah.